Hi, everybody. I'm Jen David Lang. I'll introduce myself later, but I wanted to start with something more important, which is Kim and I are offering some door prizes to two people, a copy. This is the book that the chapter is in today, or our second book, to two people who share takeaways from today's chat on Twitter using the hashtag chapter chat and tagging me at _main idea. That is the service I run. Kim's not on Twitter yet. I keep trying to get him on Twitter, but I haven't been successful yet. Maybe somebody else. So take a look in the chat. We will give 2 copies of our books away to people who tag us and tweet a takeaway. In a moment, we are going to get into the content first and the introductions later. We thought that would be a little bit more exciting, although I still see people are coming. Should we give people a couple more minutes?
I think go ahead with our polls. I think.
All right. So we're going to start with the first poll. We have 6 questions about grading, and it's completely anonymous. Just take a few seconds to answer. There's 6 questions. Each one you have to answer true or false, and then we will share a little bit more with you after that. So. Can you see that okay?
Yep,
Kim,
we got it.
All right, so you got to scroll down and answer the 6 questions. So new people coming on, we are launching right into a poll. And
Jen, I'm not seeing a button by true and false. So should I see that?
Looks like
no, other people are responding. Okay, that's just me.
Okay, great. So welcome new people coming on. Sorry, we jumped right in to start the meeting on time. We've got a poll about grading. It's completely anonymous. There's 6 questions to hear what people think.
Let's let people read these questions. They're all pretty provocative.
All right, let's take 10 more seconds. It looks like most people have. Guess it's a lot to jump into 4 minutes into the session.
Yeah, let's give people just a little more time. I still see responses coming in here.
Okay, then I will wait.
Maybe another 20 seconds. Okay.
Good?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to end the poll, share the results with everybody. So we'll take a look. I am not going to give answers to these. All of these questions are addressed in the articles in the chapter that we sent you and then we're going to read today. So I will comment on one of them. But so the first one most people thought was false. About different students getting a C. I'll just let you scroll and look through them.
Number 4 has the most closely divided answers. Grades effective and standardized tests. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So we're going to be provocative and not tell you what we think are the correct answers, right?
Won't tell you, although the one that definitely gets me, the only one I'm going to comment on is the low grades encourage students to try harder. There is no shred of evidence in any research that shows that grades motivate kids. And in fact, if you think about it, then the kids getting Fs in our schools would be our most motivated students if that were the case. So I am going to stop sharing there. So basically, the point of this poll, there's twofold. One, to prime you for the information that's going to come. We are going to read, and like I said, there are answers to all of these true-false questions in the reading that we have. And the other thing is that the poll is about your mindset. And if you hope to change anything about grades in your school, in your district, in your communities, you've got to first deal with mindsets, because your mindsets affect your actions, your practices, your policies. And the second thing is we like these sessions for you to wear 2 hats. One, as a participant, you hear new ideas, new thoughts, you come up with new ahas, but also how can you bring this back to your school communities. So the poll is one thing that you can bring back. So welcome again. I know a lot of people came in a little bit late. If you can turn on your camera, introduce yourself. We do love to see everybody. Today, we are going to, very briefly, it's just an hour. We're going to introduce ourselves and the book. We are going to ask you in breakouts to share some insight, some of your practices about grading that you have success with or troubles with. We are going to have you silently read one of the 11 articles in this chapter, and then jigsaw that reading and share your readings with other people in a second breakout. We're going to have a whole group discussion. And at the end, I'm going to share some PD ideas, so ways you can take the ideas from this chapter and bring them back to your school. A note that you all submitted incredible questions and comments, and this is just an hour. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's no way we're going to answer all of those questions or even a fraction of them. The idea is just to get the conversation started. That's it. So I'm going to move forward because we're running a little bit behind, and Kim is going to introduce himself. But first, time for the second poll, yes?
Not quite yet. Let me just tell one story quickly. So one of the bizarre things in my life is that I went to a British boarding school for 5 years. And in one of the years, at the beginning of every week, the teacher who taught the major subjects would have all of us, all the people in the homeroom, grab our books, line up against the wall, and he would read the grades, the composite average grade for the last week in order, from the highest grades to the lowest grades. And then he would have us sit in that order in the classroom. There were, about 30 people in the classroom. And so you can probably guess who sat at the front in the seat number 1. It was the person with the highest grades. And who sat at the very back of the room? The person with the very lowest grades. So how's that for a perverse use of grades to supposedly motivate students? Okay, so with that in mind, Jen, can you put up the next poll, and we'll see what people think about this one. Okay, so these are 10 grades that kids got, or that A students, got over a period of a semester. So you see the grades there. It's in this sequence: a C, missed, a D, a C, missed, a B, missed, a B, and an A. And the question is, what is the total end of semester grade that this student should get? So just take a moment to think about it, and think about your assumptions as you give the grade. And then let's just see in another, say, 20 seconds, what the different grades that people think the same student should get.
So we're running a little bit behind, so I'm going to cut this off in about 15 seconds.
Okay, great. So your judgment as an educator of these 10 grades in that sequence, what should the student's end of semester grade be?
Okay, here you go.
Okay, so we have everything from an A to a D. Doug Reeves has asked this question around the world, and he usually gets everything from an A to an F. And you can see, as Jen said, there are certain mindsets and assumptions here. The people who gave this student an A probably zeroed in on that last grade and assumed that it was a cumulative grade. So if you got an A at the end, it means you mastered all the material. People who gave a C or a D probably gave a 0 for the missed assignments. Okay, so that's probably what's going on there. Okay, so you kind of, another provocation to get us started here. So we're going to look at this question. So people know the basic idea of the Marshall Memo, right? I read everything every week. I do summaries of the best articles from that week. But then that's kind of random because it depends on what comes into my inbox. So then Jen and I put together the best of the Marshall Memo books, which is the best on every topic, including this week. The title of this chapter is on grading. And so these are the very best articles from the last 17 years of the Marshall Memo on grading. And the sections of this chapter, if you've had a chance to just glance over it, and by the way, I hope all of you have the PDF at your fingertips, first of all, this first section is problems with grading and grades. Second is the characteristics of effective grading, because some people really figured this out. And then the third is strategies for if you're in a school that has benighted policies or ineffective policies, how can you improve? My favorite article from this chapter, as I looked over it again, was Doug Reeves's article. It's number 7 on fair grades. The grades, says Doug and his colleagues who wrote this article, should be fair, accurate, specific, and timely. Kind of a nice acronym for that. Okay, Jen, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and talk about your baby, the main idea, and your favorite idea.
Sure. Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Jenn David Lang, co-author with Kim of the book, and been in the field for a while, but I basically support school leaders in 2 ways right now. One through the main idea, where I write a summary of a book, the same way Kim writes summaries of journal articles. I do education and leadership books, and I send 1 summary a month to school leaders across the world. And then I also run school and district masterminds. Hi, Kelly Hastings, Jim Messina, basically online groups of school and district leaders. We meet every other week for professional learning and problem solving, strategy sharing, and all of that fun. So I had trouble. There's 2 articles I love. I love anything by Thomas Guskey. I just heard a great podcast with him, but I think I'm running late, so I'm only going to share one. The 8th article is called "Failure is Not an Option" by Dick Corbett and Bruce Wilson. And it's perfect for this time right now because it is about a 5-year experiment in some middle schools in Michigan to not accept failing grades. So students could only get ABC or not quality, and they worked with kids to bring the skills up. And that was perfect during the pandemic. I know in New York City, we also gave kids extra opportunities to do well. And as we go into this next year, I think what an amazing model that teachers did not blame students or families, but instead they put interventions into place. They tutored kids after school, before school, weekends. And after 5 years, the achievement was pretty impressive, and no one wanted to go back to blaming kids and schools. And kids and families. So that's a great article. There's a lot of great ones there. But anyway, we want to start by having people meet each other in breakout groups. And very briefly, Maria's going to share the question in the chat. But basically, are you happy with your grading policies? What troubles you, or what changes have you made? And rather than starting with griping, because we all can gripe about our grading, I would suggest the people who have made some positive changes, you speak first. Because if you can connect with other people who have gotten rid of the zeros or who are using standards-based grading, you can even exchange email addresses. That would be great. So people who have made positive changes, share concretely what you're doing. It's rare leaders get to connect across the country. So let's do this for 8 minutes. We're going to put you in breakouts. The question is...
Before we go, let me just quickly share my cartoon. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Got to share my cartoon here because this is one of my pet peeves. Grading on a curve. You get it? Okay, Jen, sorry to interrupt.
Okay, but, yes, no problem. All right, we're going to put people into groups and briefly introduce yourselves and then share what. Great. Some people are taking the full minute. Hope it was useful. I hope you heard something that someone else is doing that sparked an idea or a thought. Great. Okay, here comes everybody. Fantastic. Great. Well, I hope it was useful and that you heard something from someone else that sparked an idea or a thought. We are going to move forward into the chapter, and Maria has posted the chapter, and Kim is going to describe the 10 articles we're talking about today. And go ahead, Kim.
Yep, just a very brief overview here, and you're going to have a poll, right? And you're going to just click the one that you are most interested in, but hold off, wait a minute, wait until I've gone through all 10 here, and then you can say which one you want to silently read and really zero in on. So the first article is 100 years of research on grading. That's pretty self-explanatory. We pulled that one out. Misconceptions that get in the way of better grading, a very good list of misconceptions. Pointed questions about grading, including what learning is exactly being measured. Can all students do well on this? Really? And how do you deal with late work and extra credit? The fourth article is a New Jersey district. I think Jen mentioned this one that deals with homework, how homework is graded. We're skipping the fifth one. The sixth one is a shift to standards-based grading, how one school did that. The one I mentioned earlier, making the fair grading, fair, accurate, specific, and timely. Failure is not an option. That's the one Jen mentioned. Students have a chance to make up, in fact, a requirement to make up unsatisfactory work. The ninth article is how do you deal with students who look only at their grades? Many of us have had that experience as educators, and just throw away all those comments that we made. Preventing cheating by shaping classroom motivational climate. And the last one is innovative grading systems are accepted in colleges. So you don't have to use a conventional system if kids are applying to competitive colleges. Okay, so go ahead on the poll and click the article that you are most interested in of those 10. There are 11 in the chapter, but we eliminated one because Zoom only allows 10 options. So we've skipped the fifth one there. So go ahead and I'm not seeing the poll. There it is. Okay, so just click the one that intrigues you the most. And this is actually interesting feedback for us too on which ones are the most provocative and helpful at this point. And this is grading time right now. So take another 10 seconds to get your vote in.
And we do have the author number 7 here, so he'll get to see.
Okay.
Ken O'Connor's here.
Excellent. Don't take it personally, Ken, if your article's not the top choice.
It's looking like it is.
All
right. Shall we just take 5 more seconds?
Yep.
All right. So yeah, doesn't really matter what other people chose, but just for you to see. So what we're gonna do now is a live read. If you haven't done this before, it's a great thing to do in PD sessions with staff because they don't always read the chapters and materials ahead of time. So if you find something short, give people time to read live. So the link is in the chat, or perhaps you brought it with you, the chapter. Pick one of those 11 articles to read, and then we're gonna have you jigsaw and share with other people what you read, what resonated with you about the article, and then what implications for grading practices, mindsets. So again, the link is in the chat, and we're going to take 5 minutes, so till 5:34 to read it. Any questions about what we're doing? We're silently reading an article, and then afterwards we're going to share in small breakout groups. So pick one of the 11 articles. Breakout rooms for each person. Let's start with the person with the shortest hair, speak first, and the person with the longest hair, will you be the facilitator and get it moving? And each person should share, what was your article about? What resonated with you? Because like a jigsaw, other people haven't read your article. So we're trying to get a lot of articles read in a short period of time. And then what implications, what does that make you think in terms of working at your school on the mindsets, the practices, and the policies? So we're going to take about 12 minutes to chat about what you learned. That's the idea of the jigsaw, to try to get other people to read for you and then tell you what they've learned. We would like people in the chat as you're coming back to share some idea about grading that struck you. Put it in the chat. It could be an idea from the article you read or an article someone else read. But if everybody could share one thing from the breakouts that struck with you, one idea about grading. We are getting people, everybody's coming back now, welcome. In the chat, we are sharing one idea about grading that stuck out to you. It could be from an article you read or an article someone else read, someone else shared. As I said, the idea of the jigsaw is you get other people to read for you. I guess that's what you do with Kim and me. You get us to read for you too. So some ideas in the chat, and Kim, if you would you want to take some comments from people?
Yes, so if people have a particularly burning idea that you want to share with the whole group, literally raise your hand or use the electronic thing on the participants, raise your hand, because if you want to just bring it to the attention of the whole group, it'd be great to hear from you. And also you can do it in your, in the chat. So anyone want to be a brave soul here and speak to the whole group?
I'd love to hear from Molly Barrett, who said, setting up your classroom to emphasize mastery and learning, not grades. What did you mean by that, Molly? Do you want to extrapolate? And if I'm putting you on the spot, you don't have to. Molly, did you want to add to that to let us know? You have to unmute.
There we go. When the first time I tried to unmute, it wouldn't let me, sorry. Just the idea, and this actually wasn't the article I read for the jigsaw, but that if the teacher's emphasis in terms of the atmosphere of the classroom is more about learning and finally getting it in the end, whatever the learning outcomes are, as opposed to getting it by Friday and then we're going to move on, just that it improves the learning and sort of decreases motivation for cheating and increases like positive atmosphere in the classroom, and that the end goal, the student and teacher's end goals are better aligned with getting to the learning outcomes as opposed to unaligned or disaligned goals.
I saw a hand up there, but now I'm not seeing him. There you are, Patrick, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah. Well, I just, Julie was talking about the implementation of some standards-based grading, and I like the idea of looking at it more or less from a ground up, not just doing everything at once because of the buy-in, because of some other stuff you have to deal with, especially teaching parents of what we're going to value and how, certain grades can work with our kids. So I liked it because I'm a middle school principal. So I like the idea of starting with the 6th grade. They're already transitioning to a new year, the new school. So I thought what a great opportunity this would be, as my takeaway is to start with this for next year, working with our 6th grades and slowly implement it for everybody.
And Kabea in our breakout room just made a really big point and a great point about fairness. It is simply not fair for kids to get a different grade from different teachers for the same work, just because of the subjective beliefs of that particular teacher. So I think a lot of these articles get at that issue. Any other comments? We got a couple more minutes here to get in a couple more key points that everybody should be hearing out loud. Raise your hand if you got a comment. Go ahead, David.
This didn't come up in the breakout sessions, but I know I saw it somewhere in the chapter. I wanted to kind of bring it to the group for feedback. The current grading policies, as traditionally done, they seem to sort kids as to those who, play the game and those who don't play the game. So I'm wondering, is that, as a function, I know it doesn't help students learn, but we as school districts have all parents have all signed up to that, like that's the function of grading. So I'm wondering, is that currently is it an indicator of success? Like when someone leaves, they can play the game, they can graduate college, they can, or is that functionality not useful?
I think that's a rhetorical question. It's a great one. Marie and then Ken. Marie, I think you had your hand up, did you? Marie David? No? Okay, Ken O'Connor, go for it.
I just wanted to say, to me, Article 11 was so important, busting the myth that colleges won't accept anything other than traditional grades, because this is so much of a barrier to change at the high school, and it's simply not true.
Yeah. People have this feeling they've got to hand in A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's, and they got to have GPA and all that kind of stuff. And really, a lot of colleges have gone away from that. In fact, some of the most competitive colleges, which is great news. Time for one more comment here. I see a big hand up. Go ahead.
Is that me?
Yeah, that's you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so some of the things that we talked about were grading being a terminus and like an end, full stop, and rather than some kind of feedback, and not very effective feedback. I've seen a cartoon about a person on a track, and they come around the turn, and the guy says B+, and like, what does that really mean, right? So I shared the Vimeo video about What's effective feedback? And even non-judgmental responses in the classroom, you might have heard about it. So if you do say good job or something like that, what does that mean? Versus getting students to continue to think and saying, oh, how could you prove that, or something like that. And so our feedback practices allowing students to have opportunities to continue to learn either from that assessment or from other opportunities, projects, and the like.
Yeah, wow, great comments, and more in the chat we'll be sharing. So I want to segue now to Jenn, because, and I just want to say what an incredibly important part Jenn has played in these books. So I do the Marshall Memo, but it was Jenn's, first of all, help in curating and finding and organizing and conceptualizing the way these books work. But then in every single chapter of these books, Jenn wrote the PD suggestions at the end. And she wants to talk about that now for this chapter. So she's going to save you about $2,000 in consulting fees here. Go ahead, Jenn.
We like to joke that you don't have to pay some fancy consultant to come in and talk to you about grading, that we have ideas at the end of each chapter to bring the ideas to your school. So I'm going to share a little bit about those ideas, and also we're going to put a final question in the chat. Just it's good to have like a final reflective takeaway. So I know you all can multitask if you want to listen and answer. And also we will pick 2 people who tweet out a takeaway with the hashtag chapter chat. We'll send you some free books. But anyway, just first of all, just a heartfelt call to action that please do something about grades now. This is the perfect time with the pandemic, because we've already seen that there's been a lot of interesting experimenting with grading already going on, right? Some districts have gotten rid of the failing grades, just the ABC, no credit. They did that in New York City. Some districts got rid of standardized tests, woohoo. Some schools and teachers gave kids more grace with turning in assignments late. So all of these things happened, and guess what? The world did not fall apart, and in fact, things were better. So this is living proof we can and we should make changes to grading. Okay, so in the back of the chapter, I think it's page 358, I have some suggestions to introduce these ideas, because like we said, it's about mindsets to begin. So the first thing I suggest is that you give your teacher some kind of true-false test, and I have the same questions that I gave all of you here today, and the answers are there too. The benefit of doing it during Zoom is, with a Zoom poll, is that people can answer anonymously. So if you can do some type of poll, it's great, because first of all, you can see where all your teachers and your leaders, where are they coming from? Maybe they already have the mindsets and you can start to change those grading practices, or maybe you really got to work on the mindsets. It doesn't embarrass anyone, it's anonymous. And also for many of you who know about brain science, it's a brain science strategy for retention. If you give a pretest, right, and then you introduce material, like if I did that poll now again, after you've all been discussing these ideas, it really helps you to retain them. So yeah, I suggest you do some type of pretest or poll like we did. And then afterwards, you can jigsaw the readings just like we did here today. You can do that with your teachers, and then have everyone come together and create one sheet with what are some lessons learned about effective grading practices. If you brainstorm, you don't have to take notes right now, this is all in the back of the chapter. But if you had one sheet which shares what are our learned, what have we all learned as a school about effective grading practices? And then once you've focused on the learning and the mindset, then you can say, okay, what do we want to change around here? And I would say just pick a few small things to change. One, you might want to take Thomas Guskey's idea of breaking up the grade into different component parts. It makes no sense to give one grade for different things, right? How do we know if Kim and I both get a B in math? Maybe he's a brilliant math student, but Kim turns things in late and I'm not so good at math, but boy, is my handwriting neat. Doesn't make sense anymore. So work with your staff and maybe divide it just to start into product, the mastery, and process, the lateness, the neatness, all of that other stuff. And maybe as a school, you can come up with rubrics for just those 2 areas so that kids get a product and a process grade. Another idea is you might want to set a new school-wide policy for homework, for example. Go back, have your staff all read Article 4 where they found homework to be very problematic. It shouldn't be graded. It's not summative assessment most of the time. And as we know, it's completely unfair. As Kim said, they talked about in their breakout group, some kids have tremendous help, private tutors at home, some have nothing. So think about revising your homework policy. In Article 4, they just had 3 small changes. They said, 1, homework is only going to count for 5% of your grade, right? It should count for none of it, but if you have to keep it for parents or whatever, 5%. 2, don't assign zeros. If kids don't turn in homework, give them a 50. And then 3, let's limit homework to 10 minutes per every grade you're in. So 3rd grade, 30 minutes of homework a night. 6th grade, 60 minutes. So those are just a couple of quick PD ideas at the end of the section that you can incorporate. And we do hope you'll bring these ideas back. We know this is just the tip of the iceberg. We would love to leave the final 2 minutes if either anybody has a question or if anyone wants to share out their takeaways from the chat.
Yeah. Jen, if you don't mind, I would like to ask a question. And just get some feedback from people who have dived deep into these practices with regard to not assigning zeros. How were you all able to approach the idea of teachers not willing to assign a 50% for students who had not turned anything in? So teachers are willing to budge for students who may have turned something in that didn't perform well. They're willing to assign a 50, but some are still holding on to this concept of the student turned nothing in. I cannot give them a 50%. So minimum grading, that has been, and I've led this practice to Grading for Equity by Joe Feldman as well. And it's still something, we still have holdouts on that particular issue.
I love sharing non-education examples. So share an example of you decide to take the temperature for 5 days in a row, right? So the first 4 days, the temperature, I don't know where you're from, it's beautiful 80s, 82, 85, 86, 83. And then the 5th day, you forgot to take the temperature. Oh, you slept late, so you put in a 0. When you average those 5 numbers, you get 65, something in the 60s. Now, clearly you're not living somewhere, it's not in the 60s, it's in the 80s. It just doesn't make sense mathematically. So I think finding some articles, or I can send you a great summary of Fair Isn't Always Equal by Rick Wormelli. He explains this concept really well, but to try to help teachers understand that to get from a B to an A, you just need 10 more points. So why should you have a 0 and you have to get 50 more points just to get a D? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I see we're at time, but I will, I'll share that summary out with you.
Looks like Ken O'Connor has got another point there. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't argue the philosophy, don't argue anything except the math. We have a responsibility as teachers to do in our grade books what is taught in math classrooms. And using zeros in a percentage scale is against about 15 things that we teach in math.
And another approach is just completely get away from 100-point and go to 4-point. Yeah. Which solves the problem also. So we're out of time here. Jen, do you want to wrap up? And we certainly want to mention the new website too.
We just wanted to say a thank you, everyone. I know for a lot of you, it's the end of the day. Thanks for spending the hour with us. And we appreciate all your input and your interaction. And Kim has an exciting announcement if you can stay on for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. So this afternoon, we are launching the Best of the Marshall Memo website, which is a free access to all the 22 chapters in both books. And here's what the homepage looks like. It's bestofmarshallmemo.org. There, you see there where our chapter is that we were talking about. It's in the bottom right-hand corner there. It's under Classroom Nuts and Bolts, along with the other things there. So just check out bestofmarshallmemo.org, free. We got support from the Gates Foundation to put together this. We've been working on it for 4 months. We're very proud of it, and we hope that it will be very helpful to you.